Eloise Worledge was only 8 years old when she vanished from her bedroom in Beaumaris, Melbourne. There were no clear signs of a struggle, no confirmed suspect, and no trace that explained how she was taken. Nearly half a century later, the questions remain unanswered. Eloise Worledge was born on October 8, 1967. Within her family and close circle, she was affectionately known as L.A. She was the first child of Lindsay Worledge and Patsy, also referred to as Patricia Worledge. Over time, the family grew with the birth of Eloise's younger sister, Anna, followed later by her younger brother, Blake. By the early 1970s, the Worledge family had settled in Beaumaris, a bayside suburb of Melbourne, Australia. Beaumaris was widely regarded as a quiet, close-knit community, an area defined by calm streets, a strong neighborhood atmosphere, and the nearby coastline. The family lived in a modest weatherboard house on Scott Street, located less than 1 kilometer from Beaumaris Beach. It was the kind of neighborhood where children commonly played outside and where doors were often left unlocked. Serious crime was considered unlikely, and residents generally felt safe in their everyday routines. Lindsay Worledge, originally from New Zealand, was building a career in education and advisory work. Patsy had trained as a student teacher and was focused on raising the couple's 3 children. Outwardly, the Worledge household reflected a typical family life shaped by school schedules, domestic routines, and the regular responsibilities of parenting. Those who knew Eloise described her as a shy and gentle child. She attended Beaumaris Primary School and was expected to begin grade 4 in 1976. On the evening of January 12, 1976, the Worledge household followed what appeared to be its normal routine. In the quiet Beaumaris home on Scott Street, Eloise went to bed as usual, and nothing about the night seemed unusual or alarming. There were no visible signs of conflict, no disturbance inside the home, and no reason for anyone to believe that the family's sense of security would be shattered before morning. Patsy later recalled kissing Eloise goodnight earlier in the evening. She also stated that when she returned home shortly before 11 p.m., she checked on her daughter again and kissed her once more. The children were accustomed to a familiar bedtime habit. A hallway light would be left on after they went to bed, and it remained lit until the last parent went to sleep. It was a small routine detail, one associated with comfort and normality in a family home. At some unknown point during the night, that routine was broken. The hallway light was turned off by a person who was never identified. At the time, no one noticed anything wrong. There was no immediate awareness that something had changed inside the house. Both parents later reported that they did not hear any unusual noises or movements during the night, even though their bedroom was close to Eloise's. The house remained quiet, and the night passed without any obvious warning. Shortly after 7:30 a.m. on the morning of January 13, 1976, the first clear sign of trouble came from within the Worledge home. Eloise's 4-year-old brother, Blake, went into his sister's bedroom and discovered that her bed was empty. He quickly alerted his parents, and what began as confusion immediately turned into panic. Eloise's bed showed signs that she had slept in it, suggesting she had been there during the night. However, she was nowhere to be found inside the house. As her parents searched, they noticed details that would soon become central to the police investigation. Eloise's bedroom window was open. The fly screen had been cut and rolled upward, creating the impression that the window might have been used during the disappearance. Despite this, there were no obvious signs of a struggle. Nothing appeared overturned or disturbed, and there was no immediate evidence of violence within the room. Further concern grew when the home's front door was later found to have been unlocked. The family's bedrooms were close together, yet neither parent recalled hearing any unusual sound during the night. No footsteps, no raised voices, and no cry for help. The quietness of the event only deepened the fear. As police were notified and neighbors became aware, the reality settled in with disturbing clarity. An 8-year-old girl had vanished from her own bedroom during the night, without explanation and without warning. Police responded quickly to Eloise Worledge's disappearance and treated the case as an abduction almost from the outset. Investigators examined the Scott Street home in detail, with particular focus on Eloise's bedroom. The open window and the cut fly screen initially appeared to suggest a possible entry or exit point, and this became one of the first key features of the crime scene. However, forensic examination complicated that early assumption. The hole in the fly screen was small, and evidence indicated it had been cut from inside the room rather than from outside the house. Dust and cobwebs around the window area appeared undisturbed, making it unlikely that an adult had climbed through. These findings cast doubt on the idea that the abductor had used the window to enter or remove Eloise. During the inspection of the room, bark from a tree outside the window was found on the bedroom floor. While this detail suggested contact with the area outside the window, it still did not provide a clear explanation for how Eloise had left the house. There were no clear indicators of forced entry elsewhere, and the interior of the home showed little disruption. As a result, police considered an alternative possibility, that Eloise may have been lured from her bed by someone she knew and trusted, and had left the house through the front door. The absence of a struggle and the unlocked door supported that theory. Another line of inquiry involved a prowler believed to be active in the area at the time, but no firm link was established. Within hours of Eloise Worledge being reported missing, a major search operation was launched across Beaumaris. Hundreds of police officers and volunteers canvassed the neighborhood, moving street by street and conducting extensive door-knocking. Thousands of homes were checked and nearby areas were searched, including bushland, golf courses, vacant properties, and coastal locations close to the Worledge residence. Despite the scale of the effort, no trace of Eloise was found. Public appeals were issued through the media, and her father, Lindsay Worledge, spoke to reporters. He stressed that Eloise was not the type of child who would wander off alone. As days passed, witness statements began to surface from neighbors who had noticed unusual activity during the early hours of the morning. One neighbor reported seeing a dark green car speeding along Scott Street at around 2 a.m. Another recalled an unfamiliar green Holden station wagon parked near the Worledge home. Around the same time, residents reported sightings of a young man walking along the fence line of the property, and another witness claimed to have seen a man jump the fence into the yard. Two neighbors separately reported hearing a child cry out and a car door slam in the early hours of the morning. These accounts later became some of the most haunting details connected to the case. Yet despite the urgency, none of the sightings or sounds could be conclusively tied to Eloise's disappearance. As the investigation continued into late January 1976, the Worledge family received a phone call demanding money for Eloise's return. The caller asked for $10,000 and claimed to have the child, but the call ended abruptly without providing any further instructions. For the family, the call briefly raised hope that Eloise might still be alive, but the uncertainty only deepened as no additional contact followed. Police investigated the incident and ultimately assessed the call as a hoax. Their conclusion was influenced by the lack of follow-up communication and information suggesting the call may have been overheard being made from a public location. The episode added confusion rather than direction, and the case remained without a clear lead. As weeks turned into months, police resources were gradually scaled back. At its peak, more than 300 officers had worked on the case, but by early February only a small team remained focused on tip-offs and public reports. Investigators continued to pursue the lead involving the green Holden station wagon, described as the only unidentified vehicle seen near the house that night. Criminologists were consulted, and renewed efforts were made to trace individuals reported in the area, including a man said to have been associating with young girls locally. These inquiries, however, did not result in a breakthrough. By September 1976, the investigation shifted in tone, moving from an urgent missing child search toward an inquiry into a presumed death. In the years that followed, Eloise Worledge's disappearance became a cold case, with tips arriving only sporadically and no evidence leading to answers. The impact on the Worledge family was profound. The marriage between Lindsay and Patsy, already under strain at the time of Eloise's disappearance, ended in separation. Both parents had been involved in other relationships, and Lindsay had been due to move out of the family home on the day Eloise was discovered missing. These personal circumstances later drew intense public scrutiny. Suspicion increasingly fell on the parents, particularly Lindsay. This suspicion was not driven by direct evidence, but by the absence of any other viable suspect. Forensic findings, including indications that the fly screen had been cut from inside Eloise's room, continued to complicate public perception. Decades later, Lindsay undertook a polygraph test, but the results were inconclusive. Police investigations ultimately found no evidence linking either parent to Eloise's disappearance, yet the speculation left lasting damage. Lindsay later spoke publicly about the toll taken by this suspicion, describing it as deeply distressing. Further tragedy struck in 1997 when Eloise's brother, Blake, died in a car accident at the age of 26. Years earlier, he had revealed that on the night his sister vanished, he believed he heard robbers taking her, but had been too frightened to speak. In 2001, the case was formally revisited by homicide cold case detectives, leading to a coronial inquest in 2003. The coroner delivered an open finding, stating that Eloise's disappearance and presumed death were suspicious, but it was impossible to determine who was responsible or how she met her fate.